So hey, welcome back to part 2 of this series. And before we get into the organization aspects of being a maker, I think we should back up a little bit and talk a little bit more about what makes a maker. And that was what was the spark for this video series, is actually like what makes a maker. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. I've already explained that, in my opinion, being a maker has a lot to do with, obviously the obvious of making things, but there's more to it than that. There's the innovation and creativity. That's all perfectly true. But there's also a couple different aspects of being a maker. Like, you can be a hobby maker. You can be a maker that sells on Etsy or some other type of craft website. You sell art type projects, or custom metal signs, sewing crafts, whatever. I mean, you're still a maker. But there's different levels of it. You can be a professional maker where you make things, for pay. It's an actual job. So I want to clarify, for one, that my take on this video series is that you are a novice, you are not a maker, and that you aspire to be at least a semi-professional maker, where you earn some income from being a maker. Now, everything applies, being a professional maker can apply to being a hobby or semi-pro maker, just on different levels. And in particularly in organization, not so much the skills. Like, if you know how to build something, you know how to build it, whether you're a pro or a hobbyist. But as far as the business aspects of it, we're going to go into that in some future videos. And those apply mainly towards being a semi-pro or a professional maker, not necessarily a hobbyist. I also want to talk about something that it may not be comfortable for you to think about. Just pretend for a second like I'm that uncle or somebody else in your family that you go to for advice and say, "Hey, Uncle Brian, I'm thinking about becoming a such and such." And your uncle, that's what he does for a living. So you want his honest opinion. Am I cut out for this job? I want to talk about those aspects of it. It takes a certain person to be a nurse, a doctor, an iron worker. We're all cut out for different things. Some people are made to be a maker, some people aren't. Doesn't mean if you aren't made, you don't have the innate ability, that you can't learn everything you need to know. But some of us have more of an inherent ability or talent. Some people don't even believe in talent, but than others. So let's just talk about some of the things that kind of make or define the personality traits of a maker. Curiosity, for one, is a very important, in my opinion, trait if you want to be a maker. You have to be curious. You have to have a thirst for knowledge, for different things. That's kind of like a very prerequisite, let's just say that. Now, you also have to be the type of person that enjoys a challenge, okay? And when I say challenge, I don't mean bungee jumping here, okay? I mean, trying something you haven't done before, diving into something that right now you don't know what it takes to get done, but you're willing to learn, do some research in order to learn how to get that project done. That's the adventurous I mean. You have to be willing to problem solve. And by that, I also mean, analytical thinking. And I can only summarize it like this. We've all built IKEA furniture, right? Okay. If you're the type of person that can build a piece of IKEA furniture without the instructions, then you absolutely have what it takes to be a maker. Self-confidence, all right? You have to have self-confidence to be successful. When the chips are down and you have a project to complete for somebody that's paying you, if you believe in yourself, you got a leg up. There's always a level of risk with any business venture. You have to be comfortable with accepting some type of risk, all right? If you're the personality type that cannot accept some level of risk, then you might want to stick to the hobbyist type of being a maker. And of course, we have the physical skills that you're going to need to be a maker. making involves making things, so there are physical skills involved. Whether it's using a table saw, a miter saw, a CNC machine, bandsaw, soldering iron. These are all physical skills that, most people can learn these things, okay? If you aren't willing to learn just by watching Google or YouTube videos, there's tons of them out there that can teach you the basics of any skills. If you don't have at least a desire to learn those new skills, you got a strike against you. You have to be willing to apply some organization to being a maker. And I don't just mean in organizing and planning a project, which we're going to discuss later, but I mean the business end of it, keeping your projects organized on the office side. Now, all that being said, please do not be discouraged if you don't think you have some of these skills that I've mentioned, like in particular organization. Hey, you may hate office work. In particular, say bookkeeping, like I hate bookkeeping, all right, balancing the checkbook and all that. If that's not your game and you're not willing to do it, you may be able to delegate that, okay? Maybe your wife or your girlfriend, or maybe you hire a bookkeeper. There are certain aspects that you can farm out, outsource and help, where you can concentrate more on the workflow, planning, the actual building of projects, things that actually make you a maker. All right, I'm going to be honest with you here, okay? If you want to be a maker because you think that, your future is going to be the next Adam Savage or Jamie Heineman from Mythbusters, two of the most iconic makers, that come to mind. I hate to burst your bubble. That's few and far between, okay? Now, these guys are incredible makers, but they had an extensive background in special effects before they ever became popular on television. They were behind the scenes kind of guys before they ever became famous. And my perspective here is like, I'm a behind the scenes kind of guy too, okay? I make things, no one ever knows who I am, where I come from. This isn't out to teach you to be the next, entrepreneur, maker. You're not gonna watch my videos and be on Shark Tank, okay? But you will learn valuable skills that you need to be a maker. Okay, now that the boring stuff is out of the way, you still want to be a maker? I don't know. Anyway, let's get into the organization aspects of being a maker. You have organization in your office because there's office work involved with being a maker, just like any other self-employed endeavor. There's organization in the workflow and planning. It's kind of part of the office, but it's also part of the actual making process. So the third form of organization is in the workshop itself. I mean, I can't say how important having an organized workshop is to having a project go smooth. Now, messy right now, but I clean up in between phases of a project, kind of hitting a reset button. That's just my style, my method of keeping organized. I, believe it or not, do have methods of keeping things organized here. And I will share those with you in an upcoming video on organizing the workshop. Now, this video is getting rather long, so I'm going to break organization into a couple parts. For the balance of this video, I'm going to talk about organization in the office. In your office, in any type of business aspect, I mean, you have paperwork that needs to be done. Again, we talked about outsourcing it. At a small level, you're probably better off doing it yourself. But I can't teach you to actually be organized, quote unquote organized. What I can do is share with you how I do it and how being organized pertains to being, a maker or a builder, building things too, okay? So in the office, there's some pretty fundamental, important things to every project. Okay, I keep a folder, a simple manila folder for every single project I work on. I don't care if it's a $50 project or a $20,000 project. I keep a folder, okay? And in that folder are three very essential things. One, you have a time sheet that you keep track of all the time you put into the project. Now, this may not pertain to a hobbyist maker, but it's absolutely important for a professional or semi-professional maker. You have to keep track of your time. Two, you have to have like expenses. All the materials, vendors that you may outsource things to, you have to keep track of all this stuff. And the third thing is critical paperwork that goes along with any project. And I'm just not talking about receipts for the projects, okay? You may log them on your expense sheet and then you file them away somewhere else. But you want to keep very accurate records of parts that you use for a project. And there's a lot of reasons for this. If you want to duplicate a project, you need to go back and have access to those records of the parts you bought, the hardware. You know, whether you bought screws or bolts or whatever from McMaster Car, or you outsource some rivet nuts or electrical components from DigiKey. You have to keep track of those if you want to successfully reproduce the same thing you built. And even if you don't build the same exact thing, a lot of projects are, say, stepping stones to another project. You may be building something that's very similar to this project, and you want to get like the fundamentals of what you did on that project. I'm starting from here, and I'm going to get this far, and then we're going to do more to it. So at least you have a place to start from. These are two of the templates that I made, and I print out as I need, and I keep one of each of these in every single job folder. I've already mentioned this, but I wanted to say that these, I'm going to have a link in the description box down below to Google Drive account, where you should be able to follow the link, and you should be able to download either one of these PDFs and then print them out as you need them. In the next video series, we're going to get into organizing in workflow and planning of a project, and also organization of your actual workshop. So until the next video, thanks for watching, and I appreciate it, and I hope this has helped you. I'll see you next time.